Hello everyone and welcome to the Franchise Show. This is the show, and I'm going to do it where we get under the hat of all things franchising. And it is a live show. Well, it's live if it's May 27th at about 5:15 for around 50 minutes. So what do we do on the Franchise Show? Each week we take a lovely new topic and we have a lovely guest. And today we've got two lovely guests. And we have a bit of a deep delve into this subject. And it's all about you. It's all about our wonderful community. So if you are here live, do say hello, pop a comment up, put a question, just say hello and get involved in these conversations, because you are the producers and the directors of this show. I genuinely don't write anything down before. Is at the end, I get you, and I hope we all do as well. Without further ado, I'd like to first of all introduce the topic today, which is accelerating franchisee success. And to talk about that, we have two lovely people. We've got Tim Morris and Nikki Senior, both from The Bridge. Tim, Nikki, welcome to the Franchise Show.
Thanks, Harvey. Great to be here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Well, it's fantastic to have you both here. And while people get themselves settled in for this fantastic conversation, perhaps we could everyone knows the two of you very well, but look, let's, for the sake of future people watching this and anybody who doesn't know you, let's do a little introduction from both of you and an introduction to The Bridge. If you could do a little introduction to yourself and how you've got in a little bit about The Bridge.
Absolutely. So like many people, I kind of fell into franchising by mistake and ended up being a franchisor. So that was fun. I spent around 5 years growing a brand and then eventually sold that so I could move into coaching, specifically within the franchise industry. So over the last couple of years, I've worked with lots of awesome brands, and I generally tend to focus on business growth, mindset around business ownership, and I work with franchisors and franchisees. And Tim and I met around probably about a year ago now, and we recognized that we had quite a few things in common, hence we created Franchise HQ so that we could launch something that would hopefully really positively impact the industry. So that's predominantly our focus now alongside our growth work.
Fantastic. And Tim, well, my goodness, everybody knows Tim. I'm going to get you to do it anyway. Tim, let's do a lovely formal introduction. Morris.
Thanks, Harvey.
So let us know all about yourself.
I'll certainly try to.
Sorry,
Harvey.
you broke
once again. I'm going to try my best as concisely as possible. 40 years in franchising, and mainly, well, I've been a franchisee and I've worked for a number of franchisors, both locally here in the UK and globally. Latterly, I jumped from being a global support manager, the director of support for a global education company, into helping franchisors support their top performing franchisees. And as Nikki said, we met each other just about a year ago. We realized that there was a whole lot of synergy between us, and we started talking about what we could do together to enhance franchise support across the sector, and hence we gave birth, if you like, to The Bridge, which was just a great experience. Anyway, working with Nikki in what I've now called a sprint in putting The Bridge together, but really good experience. Bringing this to the sector.
Fantastic. Thank you both for those wonderful introductions. Now, before we get into our topic today, which is a fantastic topic, and it's a really positive one about accelerating and encouraging our franchisees to be successful in whatever franchise business that we've got. Let's say hello to a few people who have already joined us here live today. So we, Natalia Schwartz, of course, Natalia, fantastic podcast with Tim and Kevin called Franchat. You must check that out. Friends, very much looking forward to this discussion. Well, so are we, and great to have you here. We have the lovely Simon Wise with us. It's always good to have Simon with us. Simon is an expert recruiter here in the UK and in the franchise industry. We accelerate success of our franchisees. We've got the lovely Nick Plevin, a supporter of our show and a great recruitment professional as well. And he's put good afternoon from sunny Scotland. Well, good afternoon to you as well, Nick. We have Neil Newman here. Great to have you here, Neil. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on our topic today. Neil has put, hi all, very intrigued to hear about this subject matter. Thanks, Nikki, Tim, and Harvey. And again, Neil is one of our lovely supporters. So great to have you with us, Neil. We've got Anna Neville here, and Anna is too. And finally, we have Carl Dakin from America with us. He is a finance expert, and he's happy to be listening in. Well, it's fantastic to have you with us, Carl, and everyone who's joined us here live. So let's get into this. Conversation. And what do we mean by accelerating franchisee success? You know, perhaps we could begin with a description of what we're talking about today, and I'll turn that over. Let's go, Nikki, on that. Or
I think
Tim.
one of the key things, if not the key thing from a franchisor's perspective, is of course to provide a really strong business model and to help the franchisees succeed. We want them to do well financially. We want them to feel good in the business. We want them to enjoy what they're doing. Ideally, we want them to stay for as long as possible. So certainly from my perspective, this is all about, yes, financial success, but it's also about all of the other stuff that comes along with thriving and enjoying running a business.
Absolutely, I think you're right there in terms of success. You know, it can happen in lots of different ways, you know, depending on what that particular franchisee wants to achieve from the business. Tim, what does success in a franchise mean to you? And you know, and what are some good ways we can encourage our franchisees and really accelerate that? You know, is it taking them through a structured approach?
Sure. So Harvey, I think first and foremost, I think it's obviously important that to create a sustainable brand and network, franchisors will be working to ensure that their franchisees are profitable. But that's not just that's not the sole sign of success. I think my experience over the years has shown that in the vast majority of networks, there are various levels of performance, and a good number of those franchisees actually desire themselves a higher level of performance, and there's a support structure in place across each network, but there is an opportunity in every network to increase not only revenues but also franchisee profitability, and and that is the sign, that's part of the success that I look for, is increasing revenues and increasing profitability across the network.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking about accelerating franchisee success. We may take a slight break now, as I am going to attempt to try and switch Wi-Fi. I am going to do it now. If it does cut out, we will be back in a couple of minutes, but I want to make this
Oh, he's back.
okay. Well, hopefully you can still hear and hear me, Tim and Nikki.
I can, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. Well, welcome back to part 2 of the Franchise Show. Franchisee success. I wish I could have accelerated my Wi-Fi connection today, but look, and that's what it's all about. So let's have a little look at some of the questions that we have got coming in. Let's have a look at something here from Neil. Neil's put, interesting to hear that from Nikki. How is that measured? What do you make of this one, Nikki? How do we measure that success? Success is a tricky one to measure, isn't it? Sometimes financially a bit easier, but it's hard to measure the other thing.
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, Neil. Thank you. I think you're right. It is difficult to measure. If you look at KPIs and finances, you have a tangible number to work with. It's very different when you're looking at how much satisfaction has somebody got within the business, etc. But you will probably notice from engagement levels, from the way that people are interacting with the team at head office as well. So I think you very quickly know if there's a problem, usually in franchising. Generally, if things are okay and communications are calm and everybody's doing well financially, you can have good conversations with people and they will be honest with you about how they're feeling. I think it's very obvious when things are starting to go wrong. So you might have signals like people dropping the engagement with you, not turning up to meetings, kind of avoiding doing the things they've agreed to do and what have you. There's usually a few telltale signs, in my experience anyway, when people are sort of dropping out from the other side. But in terms of knowing if a franchisee is thriving, if you have the right communication in place with them, you will know.
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? It's something that as a good franchisor, you're going to know just by talking and keeping in touch, keeping that conversation going with your franchisees. I mean, of course, Neil is from Gather, and Gather have got a platform that help you gather information. I'm trying to avoid using the word survey, Neil, and I've done it. But look, it's what I'm saying is it's really important to try and understand and collate together a collection of information that helps you understand how your franchisees are performing. Are they successful? Are they happy? I think it's a good idea to touch upon the structure of how we do this. I mean, the Bridge is a great structured program, without giving too much away here, of course, because people can, of course, reach out to you on this. But is a structured approach the best thing? Does that structured approach have to change for different franchisees depending on where they're at? Or can anyone sort of jump onto a program of this sort at various different stages?
So I think we need to be absolutely clear, Harvey, that the Bridge is designed for franchisors and their support teams to tap into all of the modules that the Bridge program provides, which develop support teams skills in things like coaching and mentoring, effective communication skills, helping franchisees develop a growth mindset, and many other parts of the program. These enhance the skills of the support teams to be able to leverage and change the behaviors of the franchisees. So as franchisors in general, and I'm using a very broad stroke here, but we, as a franchise sector, we create business models, and we create training which helps the franchisees understand how the business model should be delivered. But we are not so good as a sector, and again, it's a very broad stroke, so it doesn't apply to everybody, but we really need a support structure which helps franchisees become much better independently led business people in their own right, following all of the structures of that business model. So all of the things that business people in their own rights, not being a franchisee, would need to succeed. Those things like having growth mindset, being able to strategically think, or be financially literate and able to build business plans, and all of those types of things that are so crucial to successful business growth.
Absolutely, it's really important because, you know, I often talk about the fact that franchisees are given a box of tools by their franchisors, you know, and that box of tools is different depending on the business, but you still need you need the experience and some skills to be able to use those tools correctly, and they need to be used correctly. Yeah. And like you say, that there's sometimes that part of it that perhaps is missing, and it's great to have services out there and people out there that are, I'm going to use the expression, that are bridging that gap. There you go, got that in. Crowbarred that one in.
16 minutes as well. Impressive.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, I've been desperate to do it. So no, fantastic.
I think one of the, if I could just end off one of the things that we as a sector have been guilty of saying to franchisees for many years is, for those ones who are not performing at the levels that we know that they could do, or that indeed they would like to be, some of the support is, well, if you just do this, or all you need to do is that, or if you refer to this section of the operations manual, and of course the operations manual is incredibly important to franchising, but those directive conversations, all you need to do, or is if you just do this, or if you do what that franchisee is doing, it will solve your problem. That is not the answer. That's not the solution to the challenge that the franchisee has. It's a lot deeper than that. And Nikki and I are now on the program. In fact, we've done a module this afternoon, and we've referred to the cohort saying, try and eliminate the words "all you need to do is" from your vocabulary. There is a lot more to developing the skills in a franchisee.
Absolutely. It's really interesting what you've said there, because I relate this back sometimes when you're trying to teach either your children or your friends or somebody something based on your experience, right? And I'm not just talking in franchising here, right? Generally, people tend to go the opposite. If they've done something and it's not gone well, they tend to think the opposite of that is right. And it's really nuanced, like you said there, Tim. You know, it's not just, if that's worked for one franchisee, it's very unlikely that it was just because of that one element. It's a nuanced collection of different things that are going to be unique to the circumstances there that have to be put in place. And it's quite a tricky one to, you know, to get to the bottom of what that collection of things is. You know,
sometimes I get asked, should we create a league table? Now, this comment might be a bit controversial on a call like this, but I've never found league tables to be helpful to anybody except the people who are at the top of the league table, who can celebrate the fact publicly that they are the best in the network. I've very often league tables can be demotivating for others in the network. And in fact, I've had many comments of franchisees saying, please don't put the league tables up. Those figures at the top mean absolutely nothing to me. I don't aspire to them, I can't get to them, etc., etc. The league tables don't help franchisees get from where they are to where they could be. Really good quality personal development. And you're absolutely right, Harvey. Each individual franchisee has nuances and differences between them. Somebody once said to me that when we create a franchise, everything is equal. Territories are virtually equal. The training's the same. The marketing processes are actually exactly the same. The business model is exactly the same. So what is it that causes some franchisees to knock it out of the ballpark and some franchisees to get stuck in the middle of with a whole lot more opportunity that they could achieve? And it is about each franchisee being an individual with different experiences in life. And I'm sure Nikki will be able to talk to this far better than I am. We all come with, and I'm learning this from Nikki, we all come with hugely different mindsets of what the world is to us. And I'm going to stop that conversation right there because I'm not the expert in mindset.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Let's turn things over to Nikki now, because I wanted to touch both on mindset when you are accelerating the growth of a franchisee, or when you're a franchisee trying to do exactly that, but also that coaching and mentoring element. It was interesting what Tim was saying there about league tables and, you know, the different viewpoints on a league table. And it's the same with sort of peer-to-peer groups and coaching and mentoring. But what's your sort of view on being a coach and doing mentoring? What's your view on how that fits into the success of a program like this?
Yeah, so when Tim was talking then, I was like, and it leads really well into mindset. So just kind of rewinding, I guess, I like to describe somebody's mindset as the lens through which they see the world. So if you've ever been to try on a pair of sunglasses, if you're anything like me, you need to try on 50 pairs in order to find one that suits your face. And every pair you try on will have a slightly different tinge to the lens. So you'll put one pair on, the whole room goes really dark. The next pair, everything has like a pinky hue to it. The next pair, everything looks a bit green or blue. Every pair has a slightly different lens. And that's very much what a mindset is like. So it's the lens through which you're seeing the world. It shapes the way and taints the way that you see and experience the immediate environment around you and how you see yourself and other people. And certainly when you go into business ownership in that first year, I think a lot of people come into franchising thinking I'm going to go into a proven model. I'm going to go into a business where, you know, I know it's going to work. It's like 99% likely to work for me because it's been done before. And what they might not anticipate is all of the negative stories that they have about themselves, all of the, you know, beliefs that they've had that might have been hidden for decades, that they've had since they were children, that of I'm not good enough and all those sorts of things, can literally just be thrown in their face in that first year of business ownership. A bit like being in a magic mirrors studio at a fun fair, and then instead of one making you look really tall, it just shows you every inadequacy you've ever thought you've ever had, and it just kind of shines it back at you tenfold. And I think a lot of people have that experience when they go through particularly the first year, but also when they then move into the next stage of growth, or when they start to step into a director role or a multi-unit franchise kind of operation. And it's our job within franchise support to coach people through those scenarios and to help them see that actually, you know, that big, shiny, top performing franchisee over there, you have the ability to do that. You really do. That's completely available to you, but you have to see it as something that's possible for you first. And I just wish I had this stuff when I was in franchising, because I could see it was the mindset of people, but I didn't know how to shift it. So yeah, I don't know if that actually answered your question, but probably went on a rant there about mindset, but it can be really hard for franchisees in that first year. So they do need some support from that side, which is why we put that module in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to. I'm going to actually. I put up Simon's comment here because I think this is an interesting one. You know, we're talking about trying to accelerate franchisees to success, whatever that success is, and wherever the measure of that success is. But I think that Simon's made a great point here, that it starts with recruiting the right franchisee. It's very tough if you haven't got the right foundations in place to get the right people on board to then help them achieve and be successful in a franchise, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think causes a lot of issues for individuals is when they're living outside of their values. So we all have some kind of core internal values that sort of make up who you are as a human being. 5 to 7, no huge number. There'll be lots of values you resonate with, some you aspire to be like, some things you like having around you, but there are some that will just fundamentally make up who you are as a human being. I personally think if franchisees or potential franchisees learned that about themselves before they went into franchising, they could really, really help themselves to avoid a lot of problems. If one of your core intrinsic values is autonomy, you're not going to love being a franchisee. That's going to really cause some conflict for you. And then you get to make a decision about whether that's the right move for you or not. Simon is absolutely right. You need the people with the right attitude, the right skill set, but there might be things that they didn't anticipate being a challenge for them later down the line. And often, identifying those core values. Okay, does this business does it match me? Is it part of who I am? Is it fundamentally, is this going to be the right thing for me? Because when you set a business up, you have to live and breathe it. You've got to immerse yourself so much in it, especially for the first 2 or 3 years until you can start to take a step back. And that could be really hard if it's sitting there conflicting with who you actually are as a human being. So that whole autonomy piece for a lot of people, they want the autonomy of being their own boss. They want the security of having a proven model. How do you kind of correlate those two together? Because that autonomy piece can often be sort of squashed down a bit within a franchising situation. So yes, it's about the right people, but also, do they even know that's something that's going to conflict for them?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's very tricky, and a franchisor has definitely got to understand who they are and what their values truly are right at the beginning when they're setting that out, because they're trying to find like-minded people in some way, and it's very nuanced to get all of this right, and it's why it's important that we've got these things to be able to help us. Let's look.
If I could just add to that very quickly, Harvey, I think the vast majority of franchisors, certainly in the last probably 10, 15 years, are recruiting for the right franchisee. And I agree with Simon wholeheartedly. It does start with recruiting the right ones in the first place. Absolutely. And I certainly don't know of any franchisor in my sphere and network that doesn't aim to do that. But that doesn't mean that all of those franchisees come with all the necessary skills to be really successful business people in their own right. All the critical skills that we focus on within the bridge to help them overcome those. So they come with the right attitude, they come with the right enthusiasm, they come with the passion for the brand and the sector that it's in. They come as team players. They want to be part of a network, and they will undoubtedly have some of the skills which we teach support managers to develop within the franchise network, but they very rarely will have all of them. And just one of the most common ones that franchisees don't come with is an understanding of financial literacy. And financial literacy for any business person, just saying to a franchisee, do your P&L once a month or create your management accounts once a month, doesn't help them to truly understand the financial importance of the business. So we talk about in the bridge the past, the present, and the future. The past being your management accounts, the present being your balance sheet, and the future being your cash flow statement or cash flow forecast and your business planning. To get a franchise support manager also to have that skill to be able to coach a franchisee just in that area needs a fundamental piece of personal development just in many of the support managers. So the right franchisee is absolutely correct, and then developing the skills in those franchisees through the support team, having those skills to be able to coach those and develop those skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting there. You're talking about that the franchisees are arriving with some of these things, but not all of these things, you know, and it's hard to measure this. I am going to get on a little bit to the measurement. We touched on it a little bit, but as your clients go through this, are there some KPIs apart from financials that help indicate if somebody's starting to get some of these more nuanced soft skills as part of their box of tools, as it were? You know, how do you measure some of those other things? Is there a way of doing it? Because you can be successful or more successful at what you're doing if it's ticking some more of your values, or if you're becoming more part of a team or something. So what are the ways that you measure that?
So I think it's really important and I understand that people want to know clear measurements, and clear measurements in the franchising sector will be basically around the financial aspects of the business, whether revenues have increased or profitability has increased. Now, if revenues have increased, then lots of other things will have changed as well, whether that be sales conversion rates or lead creation, or customer satisfaction, customer acquisition, average sale. All of these things feed into that pot. So there's lots of measurements that can be done. Now, as part of the Bridge program, we do two things. We measure, one, the skills and competency levels of the franchise support team before they come onto a cohort. We measure that right at the very beginning. We include the employer or the sponsor, the franchisor of each of the cohort members, so that they have full visibility of that. We measure that skills and competency base at the end of the program to see how the needle has moved. We're just in the process of also creating employer dashboards so that they can see exactly where any of the improvements have been made. We also work directly with the franchisors or the employers to see what effect they are seeing within their network, especially those franchisees which are assigned to a particular support person. So without mentioning any brand names, we've had reports from one head of franchise who, and this is no word of a lie, has said that a particular franchisee has increased their revenues from Nikki, just correct me if I'm wrong, from 30,000 to 100,000 a month during the period that the support manager has been on the cohort.
I think it was 27, but don't quote me, but I think it was.
Okay.
Either way, it was good.
Those types of results have allowed that franchisor to make a decision that each of their new support team members will be brought onto the Bridge as a year-long induction program, or part of the induction program, to become fully fledged support people. Now, I saw that there was a question about recruiting the right support staff as well from Simon, which is absolutely correct. But generally, we see support people being brought into the sector, new people being brought into the sector. They either have some of the skills which we help develop, and they have no technical skills or sector-specific skills that the franchise is in. So the franchisor teaches them the technical skills, the business model, etc., and they still need to be developed in some of the areas which the bridge works on. Or the support people come in with high levels of sector skill and knowledge, but they have very little knowledge of working with franchisees and the skill sets which go around that. Again, all these competencies which we talk about. So what we're trying to do with the bridge is to develop fully rounded franchise support professionals who can take the skills which we develop with them and take them from brand to brand, and they can be taught each of the brand models by the brand themselves or the sector, or we're bringing people into the sector and developing the skills that they need to help franchisees become really good business people.
And I love that. Sorry, go on, Nikki. I was just going to say what I love about that is the fact that that's helping the sector, because if you're helping a member of support staff become better at their job, to become more informed about what they can do, to have more tools at their disposal, wherever they go, they're adding some quality to the industry. So I love that attitude that it isn't just for that moment. It's building something for those support staff for the future. Absolutely.
And just to add to that as well, one of the key things that we identified we wanted to support the sector with when we first started talking about this program was franchisors often can't scale their businesses because they're so dragged into the day-to-day, the politics, the conflict, the challenges, all of those things. And we speak to franchisors all the time where they say, my franchisees won't engage with my support team, so I'm just going to have to do it. And that really limits their ability to grow the business in a really powerful way. You cannot be sat, strategizing and everything else and doing all of that stuff when you are dealing with the day-to-day emails and queries and challenges and what have you. So we're not suggesting franchisors move completely out of their business and get disconnected, but having that space and the ability and the time to go and focus on growing strategically supports and benefits everybody in the network. So that was really big for us. And we have had one instance where a franchise support manager had a franchisee who wouldn't engage with them, again, without sharing any details of them. And through going on the bridge, the franchise overall manager has said that the only thing that's changed really is that they've been on the bridge, and they're now having a reshuffle. And this particular franchisee has said, please don't take that support manager off me. And they wouldn't speak to them a few weeks previously. So we are starting to see that actually people are starting to come to the table and have conversations who weren't doing before. So, we're really hoping that will be an ongoing trend with the bridge as well. That's something that is really important to both Tim and I. Also, the support managers get to use this stuff in their daily lives. We're teaching them about how their minds work. We're teaching them about how to communicate effectively. And that is a skill that you can take into your personal life as well as into your professional life. So hopefully it's a really well-rounded opportunity for people to develop.
Fantastic. No, I love it. Let's welcome a couple more people that have just joined us. We have the lovely Penny Hopkinson, supporter of the show and ops manual specialist. I'm going to show her book because I'm that sort of guy.
Round of applause. It's the right way round.
And if you want to get your ops manual the right way round, talk to Penny. I'm very proud of that. Let's have a look, because Penny's putting a good comment here. Let's have a look. She's put, there's a disconnect between the franchisor's top-down approach to creating SOPs for the ops manual and young millennials and Gen Z who respond to bottom-up and peer-to-peer engagement. How do we bridge, very good, how do we bridge this gap? I love it. Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting. How do you deal with, do you have a different approach when you're dealing with younger individuals, whether that's franchisees or support staff that are then going to be looking after younger people in the network?
Yeah.
Or is it the same sort of approach?
This is exactly, Penny's absolutely right. This goes back to, I think, my comment earlier on where we have provided a business model We've provided the very important operations manual, which is key to ensuring that there is the way that the model is rolled out is documented. That's absolutely key, and it's somewhere for franchisees to refer to if they need additional information. Absolutely, but it's also really important that the support and development of individuals, franchisees, is tailored to them as individuals, and that's exactly what Nikki and I have set out to create, so that, to Penny's point, Gen Z and millennials and their preferred way of communicating, personally developing, peer-to-peer, all of that is encompassed in how our franchise support people are helping franchisees to become the best they can. Instead of it being not only just a top-down, but being a one-size-fits-all. Those days are well and truly over. And it's when you start targeting the individual, their individual challenges, their individual mindsets, their individual communication styles. Again, we had an instance just today where somebody who's involved in support has through our program has realized that email to a particular franchisee doesn't work, but picking up the phone, and they thought that they were just being ignored and the franchisee was just not engaging with them, but picking up the phone and having exactly the same conversation over the phone rather than via email, the franchisee is very happy to have those conversations. That's a very simple example of individualizing support and getting this, results which help those franchisees to become better at what they do.
If I could add to that as well, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, given our audience, that every single person who you bring in as a franchisee is a human being with a life. And certainly through my 5 years of running my franchise, we had births, deaths, marriages, divorces, custody battles, depression. Like we dealt with a lot of stuff, or our franchisees dealt with a lot of stuff. You have to treat those individuals as individuals who have got other things going on in their life. And that's where, for me, I think being you don't have to be the best coach in the world to be a support manager, but to have an understanding of how to coach somebody through some of the core elements of franchising, and having the understanding that life is going on outside is really, really key. So amazing question, Penny, and really good point to make. But I think that's where that whole effective communication piece comes in. The one thing that we all have in common is that we all have our own psychology. And when you bring lots of people together in a brand, that's lots of differing, lenses through which people are seeing the world. And so the way to deal with that is through communication, coaching, and individualizing that support as much as you can, whilst remaining within a strong franchising system.
Yeah, absolutely. We are starting to come towards the end of today, but let's just welcome the fact that we've got the lovely Deborah Salisbury from the Reading Doctor here. She's got, hi all, just joined. Well, fantastic to have you with us. And let's just go on to a couple of comments here from Simon and from Natalia as well. Let's have a look at this one from Simon. Impressive results. Well done, Tim and Nikki. Are you able to define the ideal franchisee support avatar then? Will be very useful for franchisors when they're looking to attract the right talent for this very important role. This is a really interesting point, Simon. Is there an ideal avatar, or can different types of support managers excel in different ways with different types of support? Or is there one, avatar that people can aspire to?
I think Nikki can go for this one.
I was going to say it's a big question and a really important one. I mean, you've got to think, like, a franchise support manager can be dealing with CQC in a healthcare business. They can be dealing with drainage. They can be dealing with a man in a van. They can be. There's just such a huge array of stuff they could be dealing with. So I think it's probably quite important that they have an understanding, a passion, a vague idea of the industry they're going into as a minimum. And certainly if there's any technical requirements, then really they're going to need to have the ability to learn that very quickly as they join. The competencies we work with are, everybody has them already. It's just, it depends on what level you have them at, if that makes sense. So when we do our audit, we give you a score out of 100% per competency. That's not to say, oh, you're awful at coaching or you're a terrible communicator. That's to say, look at the amount of opportunity there is here for you to improve that. And, you know, we have a saying that a rising tide lifts all ships. So if we can raise the mindset, if we can raise the communication levels, if we can raise the knowledge of financial, you know, the financials and the business acumen, if we can increase the problem solving ability or the ability to deal with a complaint or develop somebody's growth mindset in one person in the franchise ecosystem, then that's going to have a huge impact and influence across everyone else in that network. So the short answer, Simon, is I'm not sure there is one. Maybe there is one per brand, but I'm not sure there is one that you would be able to use as a blanket approach across everybody in the sector. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Simon, as well, actually. You know, you're the recruiter, so you should probably know.
Absolutely. No, well, look, I think that answered that beautifully. We are now coming to the end of this first section. I've put a QR code up on the screen right now. So if you want to find out more about the bridge and what that's all about, then please scan that QR code if you're watching this in the future. Make sure you cross the bridge and not are swept under it. There you go.
I like that.
Right, so we've come to now one of my favorite bits of the show, and this is a part of the show where for a while, this is not my internet dropping out now, but this is where I've got to swap hats because it's now illegal for me to be not wearing a hat in public in the franchise space. So, and this part of the show is brought to you by PJ Murphy & Son, bespoke British hatters. So if you want a hat like this, reach out to Paul Murphy. So this is the part of the show where we're going to stop talking about franchising for a little bit. And we're going to find out a little bit about Tim and Nikki. And they're going to get a chance to ask me a question and get their own back on me as well. So let's start ladies first. Is there anything that we don't know about you, Nikki? Or I love this one. Have you met anyone famous? Let's see. Either one of those you can choose.
Did you ever watch EastEnders? Right.
Yes.
So
long time.
I worked in Gran Canaria when I was 20, as a lot of people do, and I was getting people into the bars. And I saw a bar crawl coming up, and I thought, I know that guy. I'm sure I went to school with him. So as he walked past me, I was like, hey, long time no see. And he completely ignored me and walked past. And it really bothered me. And I thought, how blooming rude. And then I realised it was Ricky off EastEnders. I was like, oh, yeah, the TV's only a one-way system, isn't it? He didn't know me.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, let's move to Tim. Tim is something that we know a lot about Tim, but what don't we know about Tim? What surprising hobbies have you got, or have you met anyone?
I'm glad you said, have you met anybody famous? Because the hobbies are just not my thing. I don't do golf or painting or anything like that. But famous people. So people on the call or you guys may have seen the latest diplomatic Oval Office show in the last week, where our friend Donald Trump hijacked Cyril Ramaphosa in the Oval Office, which was a great shame. However, he handled himself incredibly professionally, and that didn't surprise me. I've been lucky enough and privileged enough to meet 3 of the 4 post-apartheid presidents of South Africa, including Nelson Mandela. One of them was Nelson Mandela twice. Cyril Ramaphosa and Thabo Mbeki were integral in the negotiating team with the National Party in South Africa, and I was at the time general manager of the hotel where the ANC when they broke for lunch, came over and had lunch every day in my hotel in one of the function rooms. And that's where I met Tabo and Maggie and Cyril Ram.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, love it. Well, look, we are almost out of time, so we've probably only got one question now for either one of you. Can ask me anything you like and get your own back on me, but just one question now. So whatever you like, either one of you, go for it.
Can I
I'm leaving this to Nikki.
So you said you always learn something from these shows and you always kind of get some insight from them. So I'm curious as to what your biggest mindset shift has been since running the franchise show from the interviews that you've done with your guests.
That's a great question.
I told her to think of a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. A mindset shift. I think it's about listening, because as we say, everyone is individuals. I mean, I always ask a question about why. You know, I like to stay curious. This is the reason I do this. But if you're curious as a franchisor with your franchisee, you know, why did you pick up the phone? The answer you get back, I think, is really fascinating, and I think it's a really good way to start a relationship. So I think it would be putting that curious nature that I learned here back into what I do. So,
brilliant.
Great question.
Brilliant. And that feeds into, with all, you know, final thing, we teach support managers exactly that power, using the word why, to build relationships, get franchisees to think on their own, and to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, look, we have now come to the end, so it leads us just to talk about what's going to be going on later this week on our sister show. So on Franchising Brand Stories, we're going to be speaking to the lovely Sharon of Connexus Tuition. I had the honor of meeting her in real life. So it's going to be a fantastic story. Looking forward to hearing all about that one. Next week on the Franchise Show, we're going to be talking about franchise influence in all its guises. So that's going to be a fantastic conversation. That will be on Tuesday the 3rd. I will be back in my under the stairs Harry Potter-esque office. So I'll be looking forward to that. So please join us 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST for both of those conversations. And I want to thank everyone for being here live, everyone who watches this in the future. You really are what makes the show special. And I'd like to thank our two wonderful guests, Tim and Nikki. Thank you so much for being wonderful today and sharing all that you do.
Oh, thank you very much for having us.
Thanks, Harvey.
You're very welcome. So until next time, my friends, take very good care. Cheerio.